Today, we're not saving any money. Well, we're gonna spend a bit of money, but just a little. Don't get it twisted. We're not gonna blow money like we're made of it. Today, we'll be installing Wi-Fi on our boat. Greetings, sailors. Maybe I went a bit overboard saying we're not gonna save anything, cause what we're actually gonna do is set up an IP network, a Wi-Fi network like the one we might have at home, on our boat, so we can hook up a bunch of devices. And in return, it's gonna mostly replace those specific networks for boats, which are really pricey, MMEA, or NMEA 2000, or a CTOC. And why bother setting up Wi-Fi on our boat? To get internet connection and hook up our devices from the boat? Well, yeah, but also for a bunch of other stuff too. Most of the gadgets we can rig up on our boat work on specific networks made just for them, like the ones we've explicitly mentioned before. Those networks are expensive, from the wiring to the connectors, because they're super specific to boats. What we're gonna do is roll out an IP network with cables just like the ones we can lay down at our house, which is way cheaper. The plan is to swap out a bunch of those super specific gadgets for boating with equivalent devices that'll work on our Wi-Fi network. Y'all want some examples? Well, let's see. For 025, gadgets you can rig up on the boat, a laptop computer, the tablet I use for sailing, the Raspberry Pi that hooks me up with AIS and tells me where the other boats are, the bilge flood detector, the switch panel, which I've automated with a Wi-Fi module so I can control it from home, all the cameras I've got mounted on the masthead, the surveillance camera we have back here, temperature sensors, the fridge's temperature sensors, the boat's boiler control so I can decide when to fire up the hot water on the boat and adjust its temperature, the plug for the heater I've got so I can turn it on before leaving the house, and by the time I arrive, the boat's already warm and the engine's ready to go. Well, when it all comes down to it, tons of super useful and very affordable stuff that you can check out in many other episodes of our channel. We can do an install as thorough as y'all want. Alright, the first thing we're gonna do is set up the Wi-Fi itself on the boat so we can hook that Wi-Fi up to the internet. And we're gonna check out two possibilities. Let's see how we can hook up to free internet when we're at the port using an outside Wi-Fi connection. And the second option, which is through a 4G USB dongle, let's explore how we're going to be able to seamlessly hook it up to the internet too when we're cruising or out of port, or if we don't have anybody who can generously share his internet with us for free. But for sure, the biggest perk of having our Wi-Fi hooked up to the internet is gonna be when the boat's docked and we're back at our place, cause that way we can keep an eye on the cameras from home, gather up the data they're sending over, or get alerts about it. So, without further ado, let's hit the shops. First and foremost, a Wi-Fi router. It doesn't have to be super powerful or super expensive. The best thing is if it can run on 12 volts or can be powered by USB so we can use it both docked and while sailing. In my case, I grabbed this one you see here. It's inexpensive, super tiny, has two Ethernet ports which can come in handy for hooking up other devices or for connecting an external antenna and mooching off the port's internet while we're there. It's powered by a USB cable, which is going to make it super easy to use on the boat. Additionally, we're going to need a power source, which in our case is going to be one of those USB car charger things. Any 2 amp charger will do the trick. I specifically put this one in, and we'll have to hook it up to a 12 volt outlet you already got. Or if not, you can easily install an extra one. I've actually purchased a bunch of cigarette lighter adapters and now they're scattered all over the boat. If you add a switch to it so you can turn everything on or off, that'd be even better. With this, y'all got what you need to set up the Wi-Fi on the boat. If there's any free Wi-Fi nearby your dock, or if the port or some kind neighbor has given you their password, then you can set up an external antenna to boost your Wi-Fi signal. My advice is something like this, and if y'all don't have Wi-Fi handy at the dock or want to keep your gadgets online while you're sailing the high seas, the best move is to add a 4G or 5G USB modem to your shopping list, just like this one, especially now that there are a ton of super cheap unlimited data plans. Well, with everything bought, now it's just a matter of waiting for it to arrive. Once all the parts have arrived, we're gonna see what we need for our setup and how it's all gonna physically connect. First thing we'll need is a power supply for our router. This will come from our boat's battery through a cigarette lighter connector like this one. The red wire connects to 12 volts on the positive side of our battery, the black to the negative. Right smack in the middle of the red wire, there's a fuse, and on top of that we can add a switch, which is exactly what we've got set up to flip the internet on and off with ease. Out of these 12 volts, we're gonna need to power our router, which runs on a 5 volt USB cable. So what we need is a USB car charger, in our case a 2.1 amp one, and it's gonna plug in right here. The next piece up is our router. The router, this one right here, comes equipped with its antennas that we'll install and then power up from one of the connectors, specifically the 2 amp one from our car charger. Basically, we plug the USB in here and plug the other end of the cable, which is a micro USB, into the port that says power. With this setup, we'd be able to have Wi-Fi on our boat, but we wouldn't be connected to the internet. The next step would be to hook it up to the internet. To hook it up to the internet, we're going to see there are two options that can perfectly complement each other. I've got both options set up, and depending on whether I'm out sailing or docked at the port, it automatically switches to using the internet from one side or the other. The first and indeed the easiest option is a USB modem. As y'all can see in the description, we've placed the link for you. This is the one I personally utilize with my phone provider's SIM card. You simply pop the SIM card in and plug it into the USB port. There's only one, so it's pretty straightforward. With this setup, once it's properly configured, which we'll get into in a bit, we'd have the ability to have internet both at the dock and while we're out sailing, but it would always be through our 4G modem. If we don't want to pay for internet because we're only going to use it at the dock, or if we want to have more bandwidth at the dock, or not burn through our data plan and still have internet while we're sailing, we could use a Wi-Fi antenna like this one. This Wi-Fi antenna, which is the one I've got installed outside the boat, what it does is it connects to an external Wi-Fi and through its LAN port shares the internet connection with our internal Wi-Fi. So what we're saying is that we're gonna hop on the internet while we're at the dock using the neighbor's Wi-Fi. Basically, what does this antenna need? Well, it also needs power, but since it only makes sense to have it on when we're docked, we can just plug it straight into the AC power from the dock. So, this is the power adapter that comes with the antenna. We'd plug it into one of the AC outlets we got on our boat. In my case, the AC outlets only work when I'm docked and have the boat hooked up to the shore power, which is exactly what we need. The cable would be plugged into our PoE adapter that has two connectors, one of them labeled LAN. This plug that says LAN is the one we gotta hook up with the plug that says 1 on our rotor. And now the other plug where it says PoE, that's the one we're gonna connect with a super long cable we'll custom make and run all the way outside the boat, hooking it up to the plug on the Wi-Fi antenna that says LAN PoE. This is the one that goes outside the boat, pointing towards where we pick up the Wi-Fi, and keep in mind it can work up to several hundred meters away. It'll snag the neighbor's Wi-Fi in this way, come through here, feed it to our router, and then our Wi-Fi will blast it inside. When we're docked and the Wi-Fi antenna is powered up, it'll utilize the outside Wi-Fi. When we're out of port and the antenna isn't powered up, it'll be off, and then it'll use the 4G modem's internet connection. All of this will happen automatically. That's the setup we got, but just so y'all know, we can ditch the modem and just have wired internet. Or we can get rid of this other thing and have internet all the time, but it'll cost us. Or we can scrap both and then we'd have Wi-Fi, but it's just for connecting our devices to each other without any access to the outside internet. The next step is to carefully put each piece in its place. The very first step will be to install the cigarette lighter socket wherever y'all desire. I already had one installed and just got a plug in, or alternatively, we'll have to hook up the cigarette lighter charger and its power cable. Next up, we're looking for a good spot nearby where we can set up the router. In my case, I've chosen to stick it on the wall near the charts table. We hooked up the antennas, the power cable, and the Ethernet cable that'll link it to the power adapter of the external Wi-Fi antenna. In my case, I've got another Ethernet cable I hook up to more devices we'll check in upcoming episodes. Got it all set up on the boat and finally got the 4G modem working, if we decide to go with it, of course. By that point, we're all fully prepared to check if the router's operational status. Just gently flip the switch on the cigarette lighter connector and then the router's indicator lights will promptly come on. So far, everything seems to be hooked up just right. Now we're gonna go ahead and hook up the external antenna. We'll set up the power supply unit close to an outlet, run an Ethernet cable from the router to it, and then lay another Ethernet cable from that spot all the way to where we're installing the outdoor antenna and hook up that cable to the power supply. Finally, once we're outside, we set up the antenna somewhere it's easy to point it, in my case on one of the Bimini's tubes. Even though it's completely airtight, we meticulously slap on some extra tape because honestly, you never truly know. Finally, we carefully plugged in the power supply, and now everything's all set to be thoroughly configured. Now's the time to set things up. Let's set up the router. Essentially, it involves connecting it to your computer, either through a cable or Wi-Fi. What we'll do is assign it a new SSID, the name of our Wi-Fi network, and establish a password. Just remember, our Wi-Fi is only as secure as the password protecting it. Once we've done this, we've got our Wi-Fi network all set up and ready to go, but with no internet connection. The next step will be, if we've decided to go for it, to install the 4G modem. Since we've already got it hooked up, it'll be as easy as heading over to the internet section, hitting up the 4G modem section, and if we see that it straight up gives us a green icon with an IP address, that means it's all set up on its own and we've got nothing to worry about. Otherwise, we'll switch to manual setup and basically, we'll have to fill in our carrier's APN along with the matching username and password. For instance, my information is for a Vodafone Spain card. With this, the 3G and 4G option should turn green for us, and we'll have internet. So, if we're leaning towards the external antenna option, or gonna use both like in my case, what we'll do is hop on the antenna's website like it says right on the antenna itself and in the instructions. By simply entering its default IP address into our browser, which is usually 192.168.1.1, we can easily access its settings. I suggest the first thing y'all do is head to the network settings and switch the IP address from the super common 192.168.1.1 that everyone and their mom is using to something else like 192.168.11.1. After this switch, log in with the new IP, then we can set up the antenna using the wizard. Basically, we just pick quick setup and follow the steps you see in the video. The most important step is the third one, where by doing a survey we can look for the Wi-Fi network that suits us best and from which we're going to get the internet. It's got to be a network that's close by, and one whose password we know, that we know the password too. Hey neighbor, you wouldn't happen to have a cup of Wi-Fi? I mean a cup of salt to lend me, would you?
Just relax, chill, and look for the salt. No worries. You've got a really nice residence. Yeah, all very cool. Indeed, really quite nice furniture, truly. Well, thanks a bunch for the pinch of salt, neighbor. Oh, by the way, I just found this awesome low-cost sailor channel on YouTube.
Look, I'm gonna demonstrate to you a video. Shoot, I'm completely out of data. Could you possibly let me borrow your Wi-Fi password for a sec to show you? It won't take long, I promise. And that'll be the one that gets us online. Interestingly, we ended up not enabling the wireless radio option since we already got it in our internal router for our Wi-Fi, and all it would do is kinda cramp our mooching antenna style. We make the changes and that's it. On our router's webpage, we should already see the cable and modem 4G options active in the status, and with that, everything should be all set to go. Well, truth be told, I've had Wi-Fi established on the boat for about 3 years now, and it's something that's just incredibly handy indeed. The peace of mind of being at home and knowing your boat is hooked up and you can tell if water's getting into the bilge, if your fridge is thawing out or freezing up, if there's any problem on board, or being able, for instance, to check the cameras I've got installed from my phone from home, and in case of a storm or any weird situations, knowing what's going on at all times. It truly gives you a peace of mind for sleeping that's just absolutely priceless, honestly. So, if y'all liked the video, I sincerely hope you did. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. All the links with the detailed information are right down below in the video description. Thanks a bunch, and see you in the next episode.